Dr. Sue Lie, multidimensions.com, so helpful, influential to me. You have a PhD in clinical psychology. And I just learned this today because I saw it on your website that you specialize or focused on hypnotherapy and guided meditation. Your blog, Awakening with Suzanne Lie, so much incredible information on your blog. You also authored several books, got Visions from Venus, Reconstructing Reality, and the Pleiadian Perspective on Ascension. So a lot of amazing work there. And again, anybody listening to this, if you're going through the awakening process and you're starting to have these experiences, the journey on multidimensions.com is so incredible. It helped me immensely. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Ray, this book here, this guy, Beyond UFOs, I picked this up shortly after I awakened. Amazing the amount of just information in there, bringing this all into a context, the surveying of all these individuals, so powerful. I want to talk a little bit about you, give some of your credentials and what you're up to. You co-chair the CCRI Institute, the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute. You're the co-founder of the Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial and Extraordinary Experiences, which there have been many. Major contributor to Beyond UFOs, the Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence, and A Greater Reality, the New Paradigm of Non-Local Consciousness, the Paranormal, and the Contact Modalities. And I did find out yesterday, you emailed me, you have another book coming out called The Mind of God, a spiritual virtual reality model of consciousness and the contact modalities. And I do want to mention that, Ray, we do have a little bit of a similar background. As I was a CPA, you're an estate tax attorney, and you were a PhD candidate, University of California at Berkeley. So yes, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the invitation. My mindset is still as an academic because I completed all of the necessary requirements for the PhD, except the actual dissertation. I had taken all my coursework. I had developed a dissertation prospectus, and it was defended, and I passed my oral and written exams. So it's basically almost 7 years of graduate work for my PhD. But then when I was off at the New School for Social Research, I was writing my dissertation there, and my ex-wife got a brain aneurysm. And I had 2 little babies. Her mother was a factory worker. She had just retired, and her sister was in high school. So I had 5 mouths to feed. And with an income as a researcher at the New School for Social Research, finishing your dissertation, that's not going to pay the bills. So I basically worked 2 full-time jobs. And then after a year, I notified the chair of the department and the chair of my PhD committee that I just absolutely could not finish my dissertation because I was doing these 2 full-time jobs. But in my mindset, I still think like an academic, and that's why that huge 820-page book that you showed was developed, because I initially developed the whole outline of how to do the world's first comprehensive academic multi-language academic research study on UFO contact experiencers. And then we brought in other individuals, other PhDs, to help us together with people that have been in the field. But again, the reason that book was done was not that we wanted to study UFOs. No, we wanted to understand the relationship of the UFO phenomenon with all of the other contact modalities, because most of the members in our organization, including the late Dr. Edgar Mitchell, they all understood that this was a conscious-based phenomenon. And the numerous similarities between near-death experiences, UFOs, and theogenic journeys, out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, astral travel experiences, the whole phenomenon of the deceased communication, afterlife communications, people communicating with the deceased and either mediumship or channeling, et cetera, et cetera. All of the members in our organization understood that all of these phenomena were interrelated, but we didn't have any data on on the UFO contact phenomena. There was nothing out there. Even the work of Dr. John Mack, his last book, Passport to the Cosmos, was 10 individualized case studies of individuals. There was nothing statistically, there was no data. And so what you had was all the, excuse the French, all the bullshit that's circulating on the internet about the UFO contact phenomenon, but there was no data to really understand it. Yeah. So what we did is we embarked on that research study, and it lasted 5 years. And we developed 3 surveys. And what our research findings totally blew out what people thought the UFO contact was all about. It's a totally different paradigm than what nuts and bolts ufologists think it is.
Sure. Yeah, with me and Sue, I want you to jump in with how you got into this, how it happened with you. With me, it was an expansion of consciousness first, and then everything else kind of filled in from that. So the UFOs, the craft, the UAPs, things of that nature came in along with that expansion of consciousness. This communication opens up. We rise in frequency and we start to be able to perceive things. And there are things, and I know, Ray, you've had these experiences in your home, even with these energetic beings. There's situations where we'll see things that other people can't see because of our frequency, right? We're tuned into these frequencies. And Sue, you know that as well. And as this, we want to call it the lifting of the veil, as we continue to rise in frequency, more of that consciousness lands, it grounds, and we integrate that into our body, and that brings online these, we could call it older aspects of us that we have been disconnected from. And I think there's a return of that happening right now, and more people are having these experiences. It's happening at a kind of, the curve is just kind of going up like this. Sue, how did you step into this? What happened with you that got you into this area, into this phenomenon?
Well, I was always very imaginative and always, my dolls talked back to me and all those types of things when I was a little kid. But it kind of really started when we moved into this place that was kind of in the country. And so being in that country, it woken up another part of myself. At the same time, I heard from the Arcturians. Now, the Arcturians, to me, are real, but it's everyone's choice. But I've been talking with them for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, something like that. And they've been talking through me in, meetings with other people. When this unseen person came into my reality, but it wasn't unseen. It's a kind of an interesting thing that you can think, oh, I can't see that person at all. But no, I can see it. I know this being so much. And so at first it's kind of almost like if you're not in a real well-lit room or something. And so that there's this feeling there somewhere. And then you have to kind of move around and find out, what is this feeling? Where does this come from? And then eventually, if you keep it up, it kind of goes, wow. And then the lights come on. And then the Arcturians came in, and they have been my guides all of my life since then, which was early childhood.
Wow.
And they are very real to me, like humans. And I think that they have a lot to do with where we're going. We're moving beyond just being third dimensional people with per dimensional, life. So the Arcturians are the ones that have come into, lots of people by now, I'm sure,
Yeah.
but they have that ability to assist people to just allow themselves to believe. And that can be very difficult to allow yourself to
Yeah.
believe. But if it follows you around and tells you, do this, and then you do this, and exactly what they said when they said, do this happens, after a while, I lost I didn't really, because I started when I was so young, I was just past the talking to my dolls type thing, I was older than that, but.
You probably didn't have that limiting beliefs really established, that
yeah.
you're like open from the beginning.
Yes, I didn't ever really have that, that kind of, no, that's ridiculous.
That separation.
Yeah, I never had, that's the perfect word.
Yeah.
I didn't have the separation. It was just there. And it told me things. Like for one, the first thing it said, do a website. They didn't have websites then. And I said, what's a website? They just kept saying, do a website. It's, okay, but I don't know what a website is. And so then, bit by bit, this little thing came in, and there I had a website. And I said, oh, that's what a website is. And so that was like, that's the way it's been all along.
It's that guidance, right? So you're able to follow that. I think what's happening, I know with Ray, you had just an aha experience, right? Where they came in. I remember you were telling me about your wife and your dog, where these energetic beings appear. You've seen craft over your house, things like that. You had no idea any of this really existed. Like Sue had this connection her whole life. We come in here, we have this connection, but this reality separates us. It closes us off. You were awakened like I was. I was always interested in this, always knew there was something out there, but had that experience where I popped out of my body and I had all this information rushing through me. And you had an amazing experience with you, right? You want to share a little bit about what got you, that aha moment for you? It's like, what's going on?
Well, for me,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, I was totally ignorant of any of these things. I would have thought everyone here was crazy because my mindset was as an atheist, as a materialist. And then in March 4th of 2012, my wife and I had an energy being appear in our living room. And this energy being made my wife disappear right in front of me, and our dog, who was totally paralyzed, and we were going to be euthanizing our dog later that afternoon. And both my wife and I know why that being was there, because my wife was praying all night. She was a devout Catholic, and she was praying to the Virgin Mary. In Mexico, it's La Virgen de Guadalupe. And so that next morning at 6 o'clock, it appeared, and she called me down, and I refused to go. Then she went upstairs and hauled me out of bed. And as we were going down the stairs, right in the middle of the living room, she and the dog disappeared. And then I saw this energy being, and that non-human intelligence controlled my consciousness. I didn't care that my wife disappeared, the dog disappeared. I waved my hand at it and I said, that's BS, what I'm looking at. I'm going back to sleep. And I walked back upstairs, and immediately it knocked me out. And then when I woke up an hour later, I was now fully conscious, and I ran downstairs. And then, poof, my wife reappeared right in front of me, and the dog was running around the entire living room, fully healed. And then it began 4 years of like nonstop paranormal experiences. I mean, we could be here for 2 or 3 days talking about all my experiences. It was nonstop. And then, and one of them, let me just say one of the major ones, there was a lot of them, but one of the major ones, I was driving my car going to work at 8:30 in the morning. Then all of a sudden I wasn't in my car. I was in another reality, and I was pure consciousness. There was nothing physical to it. It was all dark. And then all of a sudden, I'm starting to visualize that I'm inside a big gigantic wheel, like a cart like an ox cart, for example. I'm in the center of it. And then all of a sudden it starts spinning slowly to the right. And I'm seeing all around it, there's videos, different videos inside each of the spokes. And then I begin to get these downloads of information. It wasn't a voice, it was just strictly information. That inside each of the different spokes was what I now call a different contact modality. You look at one, and it was near-death experiences. You look at another one, it was out-of-body experiences. You look at another one, it's UFOs. You look at another one, it's people that communicate with ghosts and spirits. You look at another one, it's the hallucinogens, the entheogenic mysteries. Another one, remote viewing. Another one, mystical meditation. Another one, channeling. Et cetera, et cetera. And then the information then tells me that these are all the different ways that humans are piercing the veil of their reality and communicating with us. Humans are studying all of these different things as separate and distinct. But what I was told was they're not separate and distinct. It's all one phenomenon. And the glue that's holding it all together is consciousness. Humans are calling it consciousness. But in fact, what it is, it's the fabric of our reality. Okay. And then it told me of what I needed to do. You need to inform everyone of the relationship between us and us. I now interpret us to be the mind of God. Okay. The relationship between us, the spirit world. The spirit world is the relationship as us as individuated units of consciousness, and our relationship with the mind of God. Okay. The relationship between us, the spirit world, and consciousness. Consciousness is the actual structure of our reality. Okay. And so, and then it lasted like at least 20 minutes, this experience. But when I was put back in the car, no time had elapsed. I was still in the middle of the traffic jam. And then I was in total shock, hyperventilating, that sort of thing, like what the hell just happened. And then within 48 hours, okay, the mind of God, okay, put me in contact with Mary Rodwell, and then with Rudy Shields, and then with Edgar Mitchell, all within 48 hours.
Yeah.
And so, you can't make this stuff up.
It's a divine plan. Yeah.
It's all orchestrated. And then it was at the home of Edgar Mitchell, 48 hours. Actually, it was 50 hours because I was at his house at 10 o'clock. This experience started at 8:30 in the morning. So it was 49 and a half hours later. I was at the home of Edgar Mitchell, and he basically told me, this is after I spoke with Rudy Shield, who's a professor of astrophysics at Harvard, and Mary Rodwell. Rudy called me, okay? It all started when I got home that late afternoon, that day of that experience, okay? I got an email from Mary Rodwell. For those that do not know who she is, she's a major experiencer herself, but she's been studying UFO contact experiencers, which involves all the paranormal. And she's been there and seen it all and done that. She's been doing it for over 30 years. And so she sent me an email and she said, hello, Ray, Mary Rodwell. I'm responding to an email that you sent me 6 months ago, but it just popped up on my computer today.
Wow.
Okay. And so we eventually spoke late at night till 1:30 in the morning, my time. And then I told her, look, Mary, I got to go to work tomorrow, And then in the morning at 9:30 morning, I got a phone call. Hello, is this Rey Hernandez? I said, yes, who's this? Dr. Rudy Shields. Who? I had no idea. This guy was a professor of astrophysics at Harvard University for 40 years. And he's calling me at 9:30 in the morning.
Wow.
What happened was that Mary had sent them an email because they've been working for years. Rudy's interested in people that get downloads of science and physics, cosmology, and consciousness related stuff, So she sent them an email, but she said, wait till I ask him permission, But Rudy jumped the gun. He immediately, called me up. And so we wound up speaking for over 90 minutes. and I won't go over the details because it's a lengthy conversation, but basically he gave me the telephone of Edgar Mitchell's number. Edgar Mitchell was the founder of the Institute for Noetic Sciences, and he wrote a book in 1974 titled Psychic Exploration, which talked about all of the contact modalities except NDEs and UFOs. NDEs wasn't popular in 1974. It wasn't known at all because Raymond Moody popularized it a year later. And then the UFO, he said there were in that book, Psychic Exploration, which is over 700 pages, he said that UFO is not mentioned in there because there's no academic research on it. Okay, so he focused on almost everything else: out of body experiences, astral travel, even lucid dreams, communication with the deceased, et cetera, et cetera. And so it was at the home of Edgar Mitchell that he planted the seed in my brain. He said, look, Ray, Rudy and I already discussed it. We volunteer as your scientific advisors to implement your mandate, what you were given. Okay. And I thought this man was a madman because I had no idea what the hell he was talking about, you know? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until a couple of days later, I woke up. It was a Saturday morning, you know, just a few days after I was at Edgar's house. And I had it in my mind, you know, we need to do this. And I wrote it up. It was 6 pages. It was the whole methodology of how to do this. And the reason we're doing the UFO was because since all of the contact modalities are all interrelated, there is a lot of data about mediumship, communication with the deceased. That's been going on for hundreds of years. And the whole spiritualism movement, late 1800s, popularized that. For near-death experiences, there's tons of research, tons of data. And then for entheogenic research, now it's starting to crank up. So we do have a lot of academic research study on entheogens, psilocybin, DMT, et cetera, LSD, because that had been going on since the early 50s, you know, research on that. But when it came to the UFO contact phenomenon, there was nothing. Okay, so that's why I said, let's start with this first. And then once we have that data, then we could start incorporating the bigger picture. But unfortunately, Edgar Mitchell passed away in 2018. 2016 in February. So this is about 2 years before we actually published the book. And as I said, the book totally changes the phenomenon of UFO contact. And so now what I'm doing now is I'm now focusing on the big picture, okay? The topic of the relationship between consciousness and the contact modalities. And this new organization is comprised of over 25 PhD academics, PhDs, and medical doctors, and certain researchers that have their own specialties. And what everyone did is contribute a chapter towards a 4-volume book. Our book is going to have close to 2,500 pages. Okay, wow. And these are, you know, like a who's who in their respective fields. Like for example, we start off with I wrote an introductory chapter, and that's over 200 pages. And I'm publishing that as a separate book also for those people that don't want to read 2,500 pages. Okay.
So this is a greater reality. You're talking about a greater reality.
A greater reality.
And that's where the mind of God comes from. Okay.
The mind of God is the first introductory chapter. It's over 200 pages. And some of the topics that I go in there in that first chapter is I go over all the sections in the 4-volume book. Okay. Let me quickly read it to you just so you know what the sections are. First of all, we introduced this major experiencer. She's a medical doctor. Her name is Dr. Melinda Greer, and she just retired, you know, just a couple of months ago. So she was going to be Dr. X, you know, because she was still a practicing physician.
Sure.
So now she's open. She's had everything in the kitchen sink. Okay. She's had 2 near-death experiences. Her last one was only 6 years ago, and it was like unbelievable. It's like her consciousness as Dr. Melinda Greer was uploaded like to the Akashic records. Okay. It was, I can go into details. She's had 12 UFO sightings, most of them up close, most of them right on top of her. She's had numerous cases of missing time. Driving her car, she is in one place. All of a sudden, she's like 25 miles away in her car. This is with people in her car as well, okay? After her second NDE, she began to see deceased people in the hospital. People that are going through walls, dead people, going through the elevators, okay? When she was young, she would have all these lessons, teaching lessons, where she was brought to other realities, and very detailed, from the age of like 4 years old all the way to like 11 years old, almost on a nightly basis. She's had 3 Sasquatch experiences. 2 of them were very up close. One of them was like right in her face for 4 or 5 hours, okay?
Wow.
Real Sasquatch. And so, I mean, on and on and on. This woman has had everything, and yet she works at a hospital taking care of very sick children. She's a pediatrician, okay? And so what we have an article where she writes out all of her a detailed summary of most, not all of her experiences, because she's had lifetime of experiences. So for 25 pages, she writes about all of her experiences. And then what I posed the question is, there are literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of major contact experiencers like Dr. Melinda Greer. We're not talking about people that just had an NDE, or people that have had 3 or 4 out-of-body experiences, or people that have seen 2 or 3 UFOs. No, we're talking about people that boom, 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 boom. Okay, similar to like our fellow guest here tonight. And so what we want to try to say is that, how do we begin to understand Dr. Melinda Greer? Well, a couple of things is that number one is that you have to understand consciousness. What is the fabric of reality? Okay, that's number one. Number two, you have to understand that all of the paranormal is all interrelated. So what we have is we have articles by really major researchers in different topic areas that wrote chapters about the same thing, that consciousness is primary, okay, not our physical reality, okay? And number two, that all of the paranormal needs to be studied as one phenomenon. Why? Because consciousness is primary. So the first section we have is titled The Primacy of Consciousness and the Contact Modalities. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 articles. All of these people, except for 2, are all PhD academics. Half of them are experiencers. Like, for example, Michael Grosso taught philosophy for 45 years, okay? But yet, he described to me, when he got his PhD from Columbia University in Manhattan, 3 gigantic orbs the size of Volkswagens dancing to the beat of John Coltrane on top of the dome of the local Catholic church. And guess what song they were playing? The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, okay? And it was, you can't get more bizarre than that. So they were beating in rhythm to John Coltrane on top of the local Catholic church, and he's had other paranormal experiences. So the next topic is another theoretical section, and we go into what is non-local consciousness and the quantum hologram and telepathy. That whole section discusses Edgar's theory of the quantum hologram and how us as humans are able to tap into information fields of our reality, commonly called the Akashic records. So here you have various individuals, PhD academics, that describe the possibilities of how that mechanism works. And that's led off by Dr. Edgar Mitchell's article, which was only published in the Journal of Cosmology, which is an astrophysics journal, okay? Nowhere else has been published, okay? But this is Edgar Mitchell's magnum opus article. It's like his most important article by far, okay? And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 articles there. And then we've got on near-death experiences, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 3 of the major NDE researchers have written articles for that section. We have Raymond Moody, we have Bruce Grayson, and we have Dr. Jeffrey Long. All of these are medical doctors. They've all been researching NDEs for at least 25 years, okay? And published various books on it. And then we have another section on out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, and consciousness. And we have, again, 3 people who are like cream of the crop. One is a researcher, an academic researcher, and the other one are experiencers that wrote about researching the phenomenon. One was on OBEs and another one specifically on astral traveling. And then we have an article on lucid dreams. And then we have 5 articles on ghost spirits and spiritual transformation. Okay. And then we have 2 articles by 2 professors. One is a professor at a medical school at Johns Hopkins, and another one is a professor at the University of London. Both of them published articles in our book on DMT and psilocybin, how DMT and psilocybin reproduce NDE, near-death experience type of a phenomenon. Okay, that they're equivocating it to the similarities. And then for the UFO contact phenomenon, we have 11 articles. Now, again, all those articles on UFOs, these are not materialist articles. These are articles that provide a totally radical paradigm of how to view the UFO phenomenon. And then finally, we've got the conclusion. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And we've got 3 academics and 1 major experiencer who's basically is a scientist, but he doesn't have a PhD, but he's a major experiencer. And Stephanie Schwartz also wrote a very theoretical piece about that consciousness is the new paradigm. And that's going to be developed over time, and it's going to be an established paradigm. And Dr. John Klimo, who's a PhD professor of psychology for over 45 years, he wrote an article about how the fields of psychology and psychiatry need to change in order to accommodate the experiencers of the contact modalities, the paranormal, how these 2 fields need to change because this is very real. I went to a psychiatrist and the guy diagnosed me as schizophrenic. Why? Because I'm talking to people that are not there. I'm seeing people, that don't exist. I'm going out of my body. I'm having these experiences. Okay, this is not a nut job. Here's a prescription for all these psychotropic medications. And I was like, okay, if I'm having these experiences, if my wife is having these experiences, if my daughter has had a few of these experiences, my entire family cannot be crazy at the same time. Okay, so that's what John Klimo wrote an article about. So that's basically the book. It's a 4-volume book, and it's what I wrote here is just volumes 1 and 2. It's the theoretical portion of the book. Volumes 3 and 4 are chapters written by experiencers. We have over 75 experiencers, similar to the medical doctor, but we have every kind. We have police officers, we have school teachers, we have regular housewives. We've got,
that was me. Wasn't I? I'm in there, aren't I?
Yes. So we have numerous articles, people talking about their experiences, so people can understand and see, how diverse these experiences are, but yet they're very similar. Okay, so that's in volumes 3 and 4, and that's the those 4 volumes. Those 4 volumes are titled "A Greater Reality: The New Paradigm of Non-Local Consciousness, the Paranormal, and the Contact Modalities." So that's the
those are the volumes.
Those are the 4 volumes.
So when are these going to be released? Because I think it was August 1st for the first, right? But was that pushed back for Greater Reality?
I had no idea what a monstrous task this was, because just to format these articles, they all were given to me in different formats. And like, for example, when I went to take a look, one of the major articles for this one section, they had 2 words always clipped together. Like on every page, there was like 20 of them. And so I had to like declip them, which took forever. Some people had the footnotes formatting different than the others. Anyway, it's been a very, very lengthy process. Now, what's going to be released on September 1st is going to be the first book titled The Mind of God, together with volume 1. And then roughly every 2 weeks, I'll come out with a new volume.
Okay, and these are going to be available on Amazon, I assume.
On Amazon.
You've got a website as well. Okay.
Yeah, we've got a website that's titled agreaterreality.com.
Okay.
And that'll be opened on September 1st.
And as those are released, we'll add links to those in the description of this video. So Sue, I mean, I've had many different types of contact experiences. Ray, as you know, is what I wrote about in the chapter. Were just a handful of those, but the channelings, things like that, the direct communication, when we're in a situation where we could sit here and be grounded in our body and bring forward this information, it's very powerful. It's a landing of a higher field of reality, a higher field of being. It's coming through us, and we as humans here temporarily incarnate as humans are able to perceive this information in such detail. And that's what's so incredible to me, is to be able to, we see craft and things like that, but to be able to have these two-way conversations with these beings as they come through is just absolutely incredible. And as we're younger, we have this, whether we call them imaginary friends, whatever, we don't know what they are. Society kind of buries that. But it's just this field. It's this infinite universal field, this God field, right? Whatever you want to call it, right? The mind of God. Akashic field. It's an energy field. It's a 0 point field. It is the universal one that is fragmented down into a reality of separation. And we, as humans now, and Sue goes into great detail through the Arcturians and the channelings on our website with the journey, as to how we are reintegrating our energy field and moving up this frequency bandwidth in consciousness. So we are expanding. We were focused down into a lower frequency, still conscious, our awareness of our multidimensional selves. We were cut off from that and focused into this physical being. And we are returning now to the greater field. We are starting to perceive that expanded field. Everything we see around us is consciousness. It's what makes up all the matter. It's what makes everything up. And Ray, it's so fascinating. And I love the fact that these professionals, these scientists, these academics, right, are having these experiences, because it's not going into it and studying it from a separative perspective. They're immersed in the experiences. They have that framework. They have that knowledge, and these experiences bring forward the knowing, the remembrance, the capacity to be able to better understand this, because they have that educational background. And that is so important to make this mainstream, so it's not on the fringes anymore. And that is just absolutely incredible. And I love that you were selected to bring this forward, and all the pieces came in to fill in around you. And that's part of the divine plan.
As Sue can probably allude to, all major, I would say that all major contact experiencers would agree with my statement that our experiences have been orchestrated experiences. These are not chance. These are not randomness. I'm sure Sue can agree with that. I've had so many, even how they gave me spirituality. You couldn't make this stuff up. Okay. It was like, it's a lengthy story, but basically it's impossible. It's impossible. I would have a better chance of winning the lottery than having what happened to me that gave me spirituality. It was like, the first three people you ever mentioned NDEs to, after you read over 200 NDEs book and didn't speak with anyone about it. Okay. Here you are, the very first three people, 3 days in a row, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday, December 21st, 2012. Saturday, December 22nd, 2012. And then Sunday, December 23rd. The very first week, the first one was my daughter's pediatrician. The second one was a stranger at church. Okay, that my wife knew her, the wife of this man. And then the last was my own father. 3 days in a row, very first three people, all of them said, "How did you know I had one?" A near-death experience.
Yeah.
So, and it was at the end of that, when I came back home from my father, that I spoke to God for the first time. Yeah. So these are orchestrated events. I'm sure you can agree with that, Sue.
Yes. With me, this was something that kind of happened in my childhood. It grew. I had my dolls, and the dolls were real. But of course, I knew they weren't really real. But then the Arcturians came in. Now, this was when I was an adult and when I had been through college and stuff like that. But the Arcturians, they came in and they said that they wanted to communicate with me. And they wanted me to write down what I was basically their, what is it? The one who does all the writings.
They were dictating to you, right?
They
like
were
dictating and you're
to me.
writing
Right.
it all, jotting it all down. That's very much how it is, except half the time I can't remember what's given to me. So I got to start writing stuff down.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have two people that wrote chapters in our book, exactly what Sue was talking about. They get direct messages channeled, and they've been getting messages for years, more than one person, more than 40 years, these direct communications. And one person began after he had a near-death experience. But it's the same thing as Sue is getting. It's like, okay, sit down and write these words, And so they're not thinking of these things. They're just listening to this direct download and they're writing it out.
Yeah, and I'll have these conversations, two-way conversations. I'll ask questions, and then when it's over, I have a hard time remembering what came through. You get into this frequency where it's allowed. It flows through, and it's almost like your brain doesn't quite record it. It's an interesting phenomenon. If I don't have somebody in the room with me that I could actually sit and they could watch this live, it's very hard sometimes for me to remember. I'll remember it a minute after it happens, 5 minutes after, but a day later, what was said, but it's just so detailed. Sue, is that like your experience with, I know you write everything down, you've learned. You can write it all down, right? You take a pen with you everywhere you go.
I always had a big imagination, so I just thought they were part of my imagination. And when I first even was able to get that imagination, we lived kind of like in the country, and there was the woods, and there was a lady next door that, did her own chickens, if you know what I mean, and stuff like that. And so it was that kind of a just everyday normal person, and then the Arcturians came in, and I didn't really know what an Arcturian was. They told me things that I needed to hear and that I wanted to hear. And I thought, hey, I'm going to follow it and see where this is going. And one of the first things that it said is we want you to make a website. Okay, they didn't have websites then. I didn't know what a website was. And so I'm going, okay, make a website. What is a website? So I kind of had to figure out how that was and talk to people. And so I did have one of the first websites. And different people would come in when I needed a certain person, and and then it became, after I got comfortable with that okay, I'm going to make a website. Okay. So I made the website, and that made me have to write things down. And so it's one thing when it's in your head or flying around above your head, which was me, it was like flying around above my head. But when you write it down on a piece of paper, it's like, wow, could that be true? And so what I had thought was my imagination was actually very real, but real in a way that you couldn't really see with your third dimensional eyes. But it was real. And I have been in communication with the Arcturians for decades and decades.
Well, the journey on your website is very, very comprehensive. And if you look at that in Rey, I mean, I'm telling you, this is, and the site's been up for a while. This is not something that's recent, but you could tell that it came from somewhere else. Okay, this was not imagined. This was not from somebody's imagination. I was going through these experiences, and I was reading that, and every day I'd read that, and I'd be like, wow, it would just resonate so strongly with whatever happened to me in that day. I would go to Sue's website and read this, talking about ascension and consciousness and energy fields and the chakras and our ties to our how we relate to the earth and our planetary body and all of this, because everything we experience here is really an extension of us. It's all us. Everything is us. It's all consciousness. We're all connected. It's quantum field. It's all us. The universe is in this sort of balance. But when you start receiving these communications, whether you're channeling, it's telepathic, whatever it is, you could question it in the beginning. You're like, is that my imagination? But something shifts within you. You feel it deep down and and with me, my imagination and my brain, my logical mind steps aside and I am not thinking. This information just starts coming forward and I could just be talking and bringing all of this incredible information forward. And my mind is off to the side, just allowing this to happen. And I'm fully present and aware of what's coming through. So this is just an absolute, incredible, amazing time for humanity.
Yes.
We are going through this massive shift.
Yes.
And we are going to continue to, and the work that we're all doing here, and so many other wonderful light workers out there, are helping people come to terms with this expansion, with this shift, because reality, like Ray, the book, a greater reality is changing. We're returning to a reality that perhaps was here eons ago, when humans were at one point operating from a higher level of frequency, from a higher level of consciousness. And there are times in our history where they're now discovering that there was interaction with beings that were higher frequency, and humanity itself was actually at a higher frequency. So there's this interaction's been happening for eons, a long, long time. And as part of this phenomenon, as experiencers, as we rise in frequency, we do the healing work, we clear, we sit, we work on our limiting beliefs, we work on our fear. We start to bring forward this knowing, these remembrances of a history that really isn't talked about very often. It's kind of was out of mainstream history, kind of like, this stuff not being talked about out there in mainstream, Sasquatch, things of that nature. All that stuff was kind of taboo, UFOs, that kind of thing. It's coming into mainstream, and also our planetary history is starting to come forward, and interaction with these higher levels of consciousness. Now, when I've communicated with the Arcturians, who are always around, we are incarnated versions of these beings. We are here, focal points of the one phenomenon. It's all consciousness. We're just experiencing it through different modalities. We're experiencing it in different ways. Whatever our life lessons are that we choose to reconnect with our multidimensional aspect is how we're going to experience it, right?
Yeah, it's that, with me, it was that multidimensional. That was what allowed me to not get stuck on anything. It's multidimensional.
Yes.
And it's always moving and changing, but it doesn't make sense if you try to really get down to the nitty-bitty of how did this happen.
Right.
Because then you just kind of go, I don't know. And but the thing that got me through that part is that I had the Arcturians.
They guided
me. That's right. And they told me what to do and when to do it.
Along this journey, and those that are studying consciousness, when we get out of our own way and we kind of allow this process to unfold, that's when the magic comes forward. And there's a very, I get a little bit concerned when I see, we're trying to fit it in a box sometimes of, okay, well, this is what our brain understands. This is what our history tells us as far as, the 50s, the 60s, whatever, when this phenomenon, maybe some of this started to be studied. We try to go back and fit it into a little box, a materialist box, right, Ray? That's what a lot of people do. They kind of put it into this materialist view. And when we could have these academics, these PhDs, have these experiences and really step back and give it some space to breathe and allow this to come forward and not try to squeeze it down into a little box, that's how we're going to advance as a species. That's how humanity is going to grow. And that's what's happening here. And that is what is so exciting about these books, about these experiences. It really brings together all this stuff that's happening to us.
Yes.
And
And
it
how
does
we're
put a
changing.
context around it, how we're changing, how the planet's changing, how the solar
Yes.
system's changing. Everything
Yes.
is connected. This is all consciousness. Everything we experience is a version of us. Like we've heard about the holographic theory, this reality, everything is a reflection of an energy that's happening within us. And as we continue to move through some of these limiting beliefs and these fears, we bring in modalities and breath work and meditation, and we still ourselves, we center ourselves, and we breathe with this energy. Magic truly unfolds. And as that magic comes forward, the knowing, the ability to comprehend it and understand it comes with it. So
Yes.
we kind of take a step back and we allow this to happen. We accept it and we lean into it. That's what I'm always told. Allow it to be, allow it to flow, and lean into it. Kind of keep the mind out of it as best as you can, because the mind will choke that energy right off, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the writing down, well, I'm a writer and I've written, several books, more than several books, but the writing down is putting it into your life. And also I have done for quite a while where people come and have meetings with the Arcturians, and I kind of pull it all together so that they can
You
have
do
a
sessions.
meeting.
Yeah.
With the Arcturians.
But it makes it grounds it. It grounds it. It makes it more
Yeah.
real, and it makes it something that we could go back to. But these experiences and that energy flowing really, it triggers something within us.
Yes.
These experiences that we've had in Ray, your experiences too, they light something up with us. They reactivate something within us that has been dormant.
Yes.
And it's just opening, right? Releasing this energy out into the field of consciousness. And
Yes.
we're able to then perceive it.
Yes,
such a
and
magical time. Yeah.
One of the things that I've been getting a lot of lately is that we're on the verge of moving into a higher frequency of reality.
Mm-hmm.
That all of reality, it's not that we will change. Reality.
Everything's shifting.
Yeah.
And that ties back to Ray, a greater reality, right? I mean, there's the title of the book here, which is what we're experiencing.
Yes.
Yeah. So we've got about an hour. I want to just give you guys an opportunity to give some closing thoughts on everything. Anything you want to mention? We'll wrap it up.
Okay.
But I'm so grateful. I mean, amazing. I love these conversations about consciousness, and just pulling all this together is just so much fun, and it's so enlightening. And I think the people that see this, it can activate something within them, because they see us and they see the experiences that we're having, and
Yes.
they need to realize that they could have that too in their own way, but be available for whatever is ready to come, whatever is ready to flow through them, right?
Yes. And then allowing it to flow through.
That's the key. Yeah.
That can be a difficult part, because, this is weird stuff. What's wrong with me? How come I'm having this weird stuff?
There's resistance.
So they have to go through that part of it.
The stigma too, Sue, the stigma of it is lifting. And as we bring this research forward,
yes,
the stigma lifts. And what it does is we find out that so many more people are having these experiences. They've just been afraid to come forward. Here's you're a PhD, and here's Ray, right? Ray, PhD candidate, right? I was a CPA. These are, logical brain type of professions, being an attorney, Ray. And we're having these experiences. And can you imagine being in these professions 20, 30 years ago and talking about this stuff, right? It's like, whoa, it's like the airline pilots that see the UFOs. Nobody wanted to mention anything. They're flying or seeing these craft. No, nope, it's taboo. But I think we're creating space. We're holding space and making people I think, a little bit more comfortable, make them feel a little safe to come out and bring their experiences forward. And as that happens, that's going to have a domino effect across the
Yes.
entire planet. And we are going to just rise in this new reality. This higher frequency version of our Earth is just going to come forward.
Yes, and as people reach out to other people, it becomes more and more normal. You know,
Mhm.
it's making it normal. Make ascension normal. You know, it's just a normal thing.
This is my life now. 5 years ago, nope, didn't even have a thought of it, right? Interested in
Right.
paranormal and stuff, but not what's happening to me
Mhm.
now. None of these experiences. It's normal now. It's day to day. It's what I do on a daily basis. I coach people, I help people, teach breath work, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And Sue, you do the same with channelings and that. And Ray, I mean, just bringing all this awesome information
Yeah.
to the masses.
Mhm.
That's what it's all about. That's what we got to do.
That's it. We have to accept it and share it.
Yeah.
Accept it and share it. And the accepting, when that's the hardest part for people that are new to it, because, oh, that's a weird thing. That's a weird thing. But once they get past the that's a weird thing and they accept it, then they've made like gone up 15 stairs.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
they've
It
accepted.
accelerates it. Yeah. It accelerates.
Yeah.
It's the resistance that slows us down. I think it slows the energy down that's
Yeah.
trying to move through us. It's our divineness, this quantum field, this energy field, universal, whatever you want to call it, the mind of God is coming through us.
Yes.
And when we're resistant to that, we slow it down. And that's when people, I think, start to feel the ill effects of that lack of flow. So we go with it, we allow it, and we lean into it. Ray,
Yes.
so September 1st?
Yes, I want to inform everyone to send me an email so I could put you on the
Okay.
mailing list. And I will send you roughly half of the book of Beyond UFOs, that big, thick book that you showed you. I will
Mhm.
send for free half of our book, anyone that wants to read it. And I will send information about the new series of books, The Mind of God and A Greater Reality. My email is info, INFO, at agreaterreality.com. Info at agreaterreality.com. Send me an email and I'll send you half of my first book, and I'll send you some information about what we're doing. These 5 new books are going to be published over the next 2 months.
Okay. All right, everyone. I'm so grateful for this. Had a lot of fun and really
Yes, a lot
appreciate
of
it.
fun.
And yeah, we'll be in touch. You know, we'll stay
Yes.
connected.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
Ray.
you.
Thank you, Sue. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you,
Thank you so
all
much,
of you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you on the
Bye.
higher dimensions.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.